Sign them, Desmond. You've always been the reasonable one. Don't turn this into something ugly. Odalise Marchetti slid the papers across the kitchen island with one hand. Her other hand stayed laced through Trent Calloway's fingers, resting on the marble like it belonged there, like it had belonged there for a long time. Desmond didn't reach for the pen. He didn't reach for anything. He looked at the two of them, his wife of 11 years and the man who'd spent the last 3 sitting across from her in every strategy meeting, every dinner, every flight to every client she needed to impress. And he said nothing at all. That was the thing about Desmond that people mistook for weakness. He went quiet when it mattered most. Odalise used to call it his gift. Tonight she was counting on it being his curse. I need this finalized by Friday, she said, tapping the top page. Before the announcement goes out about the Halden Group acquisition. Optics matter, Desmond. You understand optics. He understood optics fine. What he was looking at wasn't the papers. It was the corner of a leather planner sticking out from under her handbag, a single line of her handwriting visible above the fold. File the day the Halden deal closes. Dated 11 months ago. He didn't say a word about it. He folded it into his memory the way he'd learned to fold things, quietly, completely, without letting his face show the seam. Picked up his laptop bag from the chair by the door and walked out of the house he'd helped pay for every month for over a decade. Neither of them tried to stop him. Trent didn't even look up from his phone. What Odalise didn't know, what she was less than 24 hours from finding out in the worst possible room, in front of the worst possible people, was that the acquisition she'd just gutted her marriage to protect had only gone through because of a due diligence report written 8 months earlier by a consultant she'd never met. A consultant who worked under a name that wasn't the one on his driver's license. A consultant who was, at that exact moment, standing in her driveway with a duffel bag and nowhere to go, holding a note that proved she'd been planning this exit for the better part of a year. She thought she was closing a chapter. She had no idea she was about to open one she couldn't control. Before we begin, if someone handed you divorce papers after 20 years of marriage and smiled while doing it, would you fight for the truth or just walk away? Tell me your answer in the comments. And stay until the end, because nothing in this story is what it seems. Desmond drove without a destination for 11 minutes before he understood his hands had already decided. His father's house, the split level on Ashgrove Lane where he'd grown up watching his mother clip coupons and his father fix other people's cars for cash that never quite covered the mortgage. Places you go when you've stopped being able to hold your own face together. Grant Cole opened the door before Desmond even knocked, because that was what fathers who'd raised one son and buried one wife learned to do. Hear a car pull up wrong and already be standing in the doorway. She serve you papers? Desmond nodded. Didn't trust his voice yet. Come in. I'll put the kettle on. They sat at a kitchen table that had held every version of Desmond's worst nights. Failed classes, a fired from his first job Tuesday. The night his mother's diagnosis came back the way none of them wanted. Grant set 2 mugs down and didn't ask a single question until the tea had gone from too hot to drink to just right. Talk to me, Desmond told him. The papers. Trent's hand on the marble. The note in the planner, dated 11 months back. He didn't cry, which somehow felt worse than if he had. Grant listened with his jaw tight, the particular stillness of a man deciding how much anger to let his son see. When Desmond finished, Grant didn't offer platitudes. He offered something worse, a fact he'd been sitting on. Foster called me. 5 weeks back. Desmond looked up. Her brother? Why would Foster call you? Asked me. Casual like, you know how he does. Whether you had money stashed anywhere outside your salary at the college. Investments. Property. Anything that wasn't on paper. Grant's mouth tightened. I told him I didn't know your business, but I've been turning it over since. 5 weeks ago, son. Before any of this. That's not a man asking out of curiosity. Desmond set his mug down carefully. The way you set something down when your hand isn't fully trustworthy. You're telling me this was planned. I'm telling you somebody was doing homework before your wife ever put a paper in front of you. That night, Desmond didn't sleep so much as lie in his childhood bedroom running the last 3 years backward, looking for the moment the ground had started tilting without him noticing. He built Meridian strategies with Odalise from a rented office above a dry cleaner's, staying up until 2 in the morning reformatting her pitch decks, fixing her laptop when it crashed the night before a client call, ghost editing every proposal she was too exhausted to finish herself. He'd never asked for credit. He'd told himself that was love. Somewhere in there, he'd also started Bramwell Advisory, a quiet due diligence consultancy he ran under his mother's maiden name, doing background and governance work for firms who wanted a second set of eyes nobody would recognize. Odalise didn't know it existed. Her family had made it clear, in 100 small comments over 11 years, that they viewed him as a rounding error next to her ambition, the IT guy who'd married up. He'd stopped correcting them years ago. It had been easier to let the record stand than to keep fighting a fight he couldn't win at dinner parties. He hadn't expected the record to catch up with all of them at once. The next morning, at the college where he managed the network for 4 buildings and 1,100 students, Denise from HR stopped him in the hallway with a manila folder and an expression that looked apologetic before she'd said a word. "You've been made permanent department lead," she said. "Effective this week. Congratulations." Then, almost as an afterthought, the kind of afterthought that lands like a brick. "Also, a law firm requested your full employment file back in April. Said it was routine," citing Meridian's letterhead on the request. She hesitated. And about 6 weeks ago, a man named Trent Calloway called this office directly, asking what our IT staff salary bands looked like. I only remember because it was such an odd call to get. Desmond stood very still in the hallway, promotion letter in one hand, the other hand suddenly cold. "Did he say why?" "Said he was doing comparative research." Denise shrugged. "I didn't think anything of it at the time." Desmond thought about it the entire drive back to his father's house. Trent hadn't just been sleeping with his wife. Trent had been building a file. Salary bands. Employment records. A paper trail engineered months in advance to make sure that whenever the divorce landed, Desmond would walk into a negotiation with nothing to leverage and no ground to stand on. A man who'd take whatever was offered because fighting would look, to everyone watching, like greed. That night, at his father's kitchen table again, Desmond opened his laptop and went looking. He found it almost by accident. An email chain from 18 months earlier that Odalise had accidentally CC'd him on, buried under a thread about catering for a client dinner. He'd never opened it. Now he did. It was between Odalise, her brother Foster, and an attorney named Nor Delgado. The subject line read "Contingency Planning, Confidential." Desmond read it twice to make sure he wasn't inventing what it said. Foster had been tracking Desmond's finances for over a year, cross-referencing his salary against spending, watching for any sign of outside income, building a quiet financial profile without Desmond ever knowing he was being watched. Nor's final line in the thread was the one that stayed lit behind Desmond's eyes long after he closed the laptop. Given his salary and no documented outside income, he will accept rather than litigate. They hadn't just planned to leave him. They'd planned for him to leave quietly, thanking them for the mercy of it. Grant found his son sitting at the table an hour later, laptop closed, hands flat on the wood like he was holding it down. "You look like a man who found something." "I found everything." Desmond's voice was very even. This wasn't a marriage-ending dad. It was a plan being executed. Grant sat across from him. "So what do you do with that?" Desmond thought about the note in the planner. The call to the college. The email thread 18 months deep. Foster watching his bank statements like a hawk over a field mouse. He thought about 11 years of formatting decks at midnight and being told, without ever being told directly, that none of it made him equal to the people he was helping win. "Not revenge," he said finally, and meant it. "I'm done being invisible to people who've been counting on it." He didn't know yet how close he already was to not being invisible at all. 3 days later, his phone rang with a number he didn't recognize, a Denver area code. He almost let it go to voicemail. Something made him answer. "Mr. Cole? This is Bianca Sorrell. I'm the CEO of Halden Group." A pause, deliberate, giving the name room to land. "I believe you may know it by a different name, Bramwell Advisory." Desmond's stomach dropped through the floor. "I'm listening. I'd like you to fly out to Denver. In person. There are things I need to show you that I won't say over the phone, and there's a decision I need you to make once you see them." Her voice didn't waver. "It concerns your wife's company, and it concerns you a great deal more than you currently understand." He flew out 2 days later on a ticket Bianca's office had already booked, sitting in a window seat over Nebraska, trying to guess what could possibly wait for him in a Denver boardroom, and guessing wrong about all of it. Bianca Sorrell's office was glass on 3 sides, high enough that the mountains looked close and unreal. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. She slid a folder across her desk the way Odalise had slid the divorce papers across the kitchen island, a gesture Desmond was starting to recognize as the universal signal for your life is about to change, and I am not going to soften it. 6 days ago, this office received an anonymous package. Photographs, hotel records, a recording. She watched his face as she said it. It documents an affair between your wife and Trent Calloway that ran the entire length of the negotiation for our acquisition of Meridian Strategies. Desmond's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. There's more. Bianca leaned forward. The recording includes Calloway on an open line, laying out, in detail, a plan to discredit you professionally and pressure you into accepting an unfavorable settlement the moment the deal closed. He names the college. He names HR contacts. He references records he'd already requested months in advance. I know, Desmond said quietly. I found the trail myself 3 days ago. Bianca studied him for a moment, recalibrating something behind her eyes. Then you understand why I called you specifically, and not simply because you're the estranged husband of our newest acquisition CEO. She turned her laptop toward him. The anonymous package also identified something else. The independent due diligence report that cleared this acquisition, the report my board relied on to approve 9 figures of capital, was written by Bramall Advisory. She let the silence sit there until he filled it himself. That's me, Desmond said. I wrote it 8 months ago, before any of this. I didn't know whose company it was attached to until the contracts were already public. Meridian doesn't use Odalise's name on the paperwork. It's all entity names and holding structures. I had no idea I was evaluating my own wife's firm. I believe you, Bianca said, which is exactly why I'm giving you a choice most people in your position never get. I can kill this deal on the strength of the affair and the misconduct alone. That's well within my board's authority, and frankly, it would be justified. Or, she paused, you can walk into that boardroom in 3 days, stand behind the work that made this deal possible in the first place, and let the truth do what truth does when nobody's allowed to spin it anymore. Desmond looked out at the mountains for a long moment. Kill it if it deserves to be killed, he said. For real reasons. Not for mine. Bianca almost smiled. That's precisely the answer I was hoping to hear. The boardroom, 3 days later, had the particular hush of a room that knew something was about to happen and hadn't yet been told what. Desmond sat near the head of the table, unremarkable in a gray suit. When Odalise walked in with Trent half a step behind her, both of them wearing the composed, camera-ready confidence of people about to close the biggest deal of their careers. Odalise saw him first. Her smile held for exactly 3 seconds before it cracked at the edges, and she recovered, too late for anyone in the room not to notice. Desmond, she said, like his name was a question. What are you? This is Desmond Cole, Bianca said, cutting cleanly across the room before Odalise could finish. You may also know him, professionally, as the principal of Bramall Advisory, the firm whose due diligence report this board relied on to approve the acquisition of Meridian Strategies. Nobody in the room breathed for a second. Trent's expression didn't move fast enough to hide the flicker underneath it. Bianca nodded to her assistant, and the projector lit up with the report itself, Desmond's name on the header of every page, dated 8 months back, long before Trent had ever picked up a phone to ask a college HR office about IT salary bands. Bianca advanced to a flagged section near the end. Page 31, she said. Flagged 2 months before the affair became public knowledge to this board. Possible undisclosed personal relationship, governance risk requiring further review. She let that sit. Mr. Cole flagged this before he had any personal stake in it, before he knew whose marriage it would eventually touch. Then the recording played. Trent's voice, tinny through the boardroom speakers, laying out, in his own words, on an open line he hadn't realized was being captured, exactly how he planned to gut Desmond standing at the college and force a settlement Desmond would have no leverage to fight. Odalise didn't look at the screen. She looked at Trent, and the whole room watched something in her face give way in real time. Not tears, not yet, but the particular collapse of someone realizing, all at once, that she had never been his partner in any of it. She had been the way in. Northbridge's, Halden's, general counsel spoke next, flat and procedural, the kind of voice that had delivered this exact sentence to other people before. Mr. Calloway, you're asked to leave this meeting, and this deal, effective immediately, Trent didn't argue. He buttoned his jacket with a hand that wasn't quite steady, gathered nothing else, and walked out without a single word to Odalise on his way. The door closing behind him was the loudest thing in the room. Odalise sat alone at the table for a moment that stretched too long, then turned to Bianca. What does Halden need from me to move forward with this? A full governance audit. No negotiation on scope. Done. Odalise said immediately. No counteroffer. No attorney whispering in her ear. It was the first fully honest thing Desmond had heard her say in months. He stood to leave. At the door, Odalise said his name. Quiet. No performance left in it. He turned. Their eyes held for a second, maybe two. He didn't say anything. Neither did she. He walked out. She found him 20 minutes later in the hallway outside the elevator bank. Coat already on, no folder in her hands this time. No armor. I called Nor an hour ago, she said. Told her to withdraw the settlement. All of it. I'm having something fair drawn up instead. She swallowed. That wasn't Bianca's condition. That was mine. I want you to know that. Desmond didn't answer right away. I caught Trent trying to move company equity into his own name 2 weeks ago. She went on, quieter now, like it cost her something to say it out loud. Quietly. I flagged it before any of this came out. You taught me to look for exactly that kind of thing, years ago, back when we were nobody with a rented office and a bad copier. I don't know why I'm telling you that. I think I wanted you to know some part of what you built stayed with me even after I stopped noticing you built it. I don't want to destroy you, Odalise, Desmond said finally. I just need you to understand what you gave up. He didn't wait for a response. The elevator doors opened, and he stepped inside, and she didn't follow. He didn't go back to Milwaukee. Halden offered him a permanent position running governance consulting out of the Denver office, under his own name this time. Both names folded into one, no more hiding behind his mother's maiden name, to keep from being measured against a wife who'd stopped seeing him years before she admitted it out loud. Grant flew out for the first weekend. Desmond had his own apartment furnished enough to host anyone. They sat on a narrow balcony with 2 beers and watched the sun drop behind the front range, and neither of them felt the need to fill the silence with anything meaningful. Some silences had finally earned the right to just be quiet. 6 months after the boardroom, Desmond flew back to Milwaukee for a conference and ran into Odalise outside a coffee shop 2 blocks from the old Meridian office. The accidental, unplanned kind of run-in neither of them could have staged even if they'd wanted to. She looked thinner, steadier, somehow, in a different way than the composure she used to wear like armor. The audit cleared me, she said. I'm back as CEO. Full board confidence. A pause. There's something else you should probably know, since you're the one who paid the price for finding it out. What? The anonymous package that started all of it. The photos, the recording, Bramwell's report getting flagged to Halden's board. It didn't come from an ally of yours. It came from Farah. She saw the name land, watched him place it. Her own longtime assistant. She'd been building a case against Trent for months, for reasons that had nothing to do with either of us. Something he did to her, before any of this. She just used our story as the vehicle to get it in front of people who'd act on it. Odalise let out a breath that wasn't quite a laugh. I spent months thinking I was the author of my own downfall, or my own justice, depending on the day. Turns out I was a pawn in 2 different games running at once, and I never once saw either board. Desmond didn't reach for her hand. He didn't offer forgiveness dressed up as closure, and he didn't twist anything further into her, either. I hope you find peace, Odalise, he said, and meant every word of it. I really do. He didn't wait to see her reaction. He turned and walked toward his rental car, and he didn't look back, and for the first time in longer than he could easily measure, not looking back didn't feel like running from anything at all. That evening, back in his new apartment 1,100 miles from the house he used to think was permanent, Desmond stood at the window with the last of the sunset burning orange over rooftops that weren't his childhood rooftops. In a city he hadn't chosen so much as the city had chosen him, one boardroom at a time. He thought about all the years he'd spent being the invisible half of somebody else's success. The decks he'd formatted at midnight with no name on them. The report he'd written 8 months before any of it turned personal. Work built quietly enough that nobody thought to ask whose hands had shaped it. It had taken losing everything he thought he had for his own name to finally be the one that mattered on the page. He watched the light go, and for the first time in a long time, He didn't feel like he was waiting for anyone else's permission to take up the space he was standing in. Desmond lost his marriage, his career, and almost his identity, but in the end, he found something far more valuable: his peace. If this story reminded you that truth always finds its way to the light, leave a love emoji in the comments. And if you want more powerful stories like this, subscribe and join us for the next journey.